Hello, it's Mouse again here. I still have Teddy with me from earlier, but I thought Teddy could stay while I read tonight's story. Tonight is another series green book called The Tale of Timmy Tiptoes. Now, can you see what Timmy Tiptoes is? It's a little squirrel in a lovely little red jacket. So the first story tonight is this one. You can see there's Timmy Tiptoes just here by the foot of a tree. And I'll start the story. Just give me a minute. Once upon a time, there was a little fat, comfortable grey squirrel called Timmy Tiptoes. He had a nest thatched with leaves in the top of a tall tree, and he had a little squirrel wife called Goody. Now, if you look closely, you can see him in the tree, but in the little house in the distance, there's another little squirrel poking her head out, which I think must be Goody. Timmy Tiptoes sat out, enjoying the breeze. He whisked his tail and chuckled. "Little wife Goody, the nuts are ripe. We must lay up a store for winter and spring." Goody Tiptoes was busy pushing moss under the thatch. "The nest is so snug, we shall be sound asleep all winter. Then we shall wake up all the thinner when there is nothing to eat in springtime," replied prudent Timothy. There's Goody Tiptoes. See her, she's getting some moss and making a lovely snug little nest for them, because squirrels hibernate in the winter when it gets really cold. When Timmy and Goody Tiptoes came to the nut thicket, they found other squirrels were already there. Timmy took off his jacket and hung it on a twig. They worked away quietly by themselves. He's just hanging up his little red jacket, and in the distance you can see some squirrels also scurrying about there. Every day they made several journeys and picked quantities of nuts. They carried them away in bags and stored them in several hollow stumps near the tree where they had built their nest. There they go, scurrying away and storing away their nuts in a safe place so they can find them later. That's what the squirrels in my garden do. They tend to dig holes in the lawn and bury the nuts in the soil in the lawn, and then they come back and dig them up. When these stumps were full, they began to empty the bags into a hole high up in a tree that had belonged to a woodpecker. The nuts rattled down, down, down inside. "How shall you ever get them out again?" "It is like a money box," said Goody. "I shall be much thinner before springtime, my love," said Timmy Tiptoes, peeping into the hole. Look, he's at the top of the tree. She's passing him up some nuts, and he's emptying them into that hole. They did collect quantities because they did not lose them. Squirrels who bury their nuts in the ground lose more than half because they cannot remember the place. The most forgetful squirrel in the woods is called Silvertail. He began to dig and he could not remember, and then he dug again, found some nuts that did not belong to him, and then there was a fight, and other squirrels began to dig. The whole wood was in commotion. Look. You see them digging all over the place looking for nuts that they buried earlier. Unfortunately, just at this time, a flock of little birds flew by from bush to bush, searching for green caterpillars and spiders. There were several sorts of little birds twittering different songs. The first one sang, "Who's been digging up my nuts? Who's been digging up my nuts?" And another sang, "Little bit of bread and no cheese, little bit of bread and no cheese." I think squirrels spend a lot of their time digging, burying and digging. The squirrels followed and listened. The first little bird flew into the bush where Timmy and Goody Tiptoes were quietly tying up their bags, and it sang, "Who's been digging up my nuts? Who's been digging up my nuts?" Timmy Tiptoes went on with his work without replying. Indeed, the little bird did not expect an answer. It was only singing its natural song, and it meant nothing at all. There you see the two Tiptoes squirrels tying up the sack of nuts there, very, very carefully. But when the other squirrels heard that song, they rushed upon Timmy Tiptoes and cuffed and scratched him and upset the bag of nuts. The innocent little bird which has caused all the great mischief flew away in a fright. Timmy rolled over and over, and then turned tail and fled towards his nest, followed by a crowd of squirrels, shouting, "Who's been digging up my nuts?" Gosh, he has to run fast because all those squirrels are chasing him. I think they're a bit cross. There's loads of nuts. They caught him and dragged him up the very same tree where there was the little round hole, and they pushed him into it. The hole was much too small for Timmy Tiptoes' figure. They squeezed him dreadfully. It was a wonder they did not break his ribs. "We will leave him there till he confesses," said Silvertail Squirrel, and he shouted into the hole, "Who's been digging up my nuts?" Well, that's not very nice, is it? Timmy Tiptoes made no reply. He had tumbled down inside the tree upon half a peck of nuts belonging to himself. He lay stunned and still. Poor fellow. Look, there he is, down at the bottom of the hole there, on top of a pile of nuts he had earlier tossed into the hole. Goody Tiptoes picked up the nut bags and went home. She made a cup of tea for Timmy, but he didn't come, and didn't come. Goody Tiptoes passed a lonely and unhappy night. The next morning she ventured back into the nut bushes to look for him, but the other unkind squirrels drove her away. She wandered all over the wood, calling, "Timmy Tiptoes, Timmy Tiptoes, oh, where is Timmy Tiptoes?" Can you see? She's looking all over for him. In the meantime, Timmy Tiptoes came to his senses. He found himself tucked up in a little moss bed, very much in the dark, feeling sore. It seemed to be underground. Timmy coughed and groaned because his ribs hurt him. There was a chirpy little noise, and a small striped chipmunk appeared with a nightlight and hoped he felt better. It was most kind to Timmy Tiptoes. It lent him his nightcap, and the house was full of provisions. Well, that's a good little chipmunk there. See, Timmy Tiptoes is all snuggled in bed there, and that chipmunk seems to be looking after him. That's kind, isn't it? The chipmunk explained that it had rained nuts through the top of the tree. "Beside, I found a few buried." It laughed and chuckled when it heard Timmy's story. While Timmy was confined to bed, it enticed him to eat in quantities. "But how shall I ever get out through that hole unless I thin myself? My wife will be anxious." "Just another nut or two nuts. Let me crack them for you," said the chipmunk. Timmy Tiptoes. Timmy Tiptoes grew fatter and fatter. Oh dear, that's what a little chipmunk looks like. See there, the stripes on its back. I don't think I've ever seen a real life chipmunk. Now, Goody Tiptoes had set out to work again by herself. She did not put any more nuts into the woodpecker's hole because she had always doubted how they would be got out again. She hid them under a tree root. They rattled down, down, down. Once when Goody emptied an extra big bagful, there was a decided squeak, and next time Goody brought another bagful. A little striped chipmunk scrambled out in a hurry. She's working very hard collecting all the nuts. It is getting perfectly full up downstairs. The sitting room is full, and they are rolling along the passage, and my husband, Chippy Hackey, has run away and left me. What is the explanation of these shower of nuts?" "I'm sure I beg your pardon. I did not know anybody lives there," said Mrs. Goody Tiptoes. "But where is Chippy Hackey?" "My husband, Timmy Tiptoes, has run away too." I know where Chippy is. A little bird told me," said Mrs. Chippy Hackey. It's complicated. See, there's the two squirrel and chipmunk ladies chatting away. She led the way to the woodpecker's tree, and they listened at the hole. Down there below was a noise of nutcrackers, and a fat squirrel voice and a thin squirrel voice were singing together. "My little old man and I fell out. How shall we bring this matter about? Bring it about as well as you can, and get you gone, you little old man." Well, that's a funny, strange song, isn't it? There's the two ladies listening at the hole. Let me move it back a bit, it won't be so blurry there. See, a squirrel seems to be quite a bit bigger than a chipmunk. And there's the little hole into which they dropped the nuts earlier. "You could squeeze in through that little round hole," said Goody Tiptoes. "Yes, I could," said the chipmunk, "but my husband, Chippy Hackey, bites." Down below there was a noise of cracking nuts and nibbling, and then the fat squirrel voice and the thin squirrel voice sang, "Foot the diddle-um-day, the diddle-um-dee, diddle-diddle-diddle-diddle-dum-day." I think they're having a good time in that tree, eating all those nuts. The two ladies are outside wondering what to do. Then Goody peeped in at the hole and called down, "Timmy Tiptoes, oh fee, Timmy Tiptoes." And Timmy replied, "Is that you, Goody Tiptoes?" "Why, certainly." He came up and kissed Goody through the hole, but he was so fat that he could not get out. Chippy Hackey was not too fat, but he did not want to come. He stayed down below and chuckled. Well, you can see that Timmy Tiptoes can only squeeze his head out. The rest of him must be too fat to get through that hole. And so it went on for a fortnight, till a big wind blew off the top of the tree and opened up the hole and let in the rain. Then Timmy Tiptoes came out and went home with an umbrella. There, he's managed to fit into his little red jacket, but his tummy does look quite a lot bigger. But Chippy Hackey continued to camp out for another week, although it was uncomfortable. See, the rain is coming in now. He's getting a bit wet down there. At last a large bear came walking through the wood. Perhaps he also was looking for nuts. He seemed to be sniffing around. See the chipmunk hiding in the tree stump here. There's the bear in the distance. Chippy Hackey went home in a hurry. See, as the bear got closer, it got quite big. So there's Chippy Hackey suddenly making a run for it. And when Chippy Hackey got home, he found he had caught a cold in his head, and he was more uncomfortable still. There. See, his wife has wrapped a blanket round him and got his feet in some nice warm water there. And now Timmy and Goody Tiptoes kept their nut store fastened up with a little padlock. Can you see? They've got a padlock on their nut store up there. There's Timmy Tiptoes doing the padlock up. And down here is Goody Tiptoes with some tiny baby squirrels. And whenever the little bird sees a chipmunk, he sings, "Who's been digging up my nuts? Who's been digging up my nuts?" But nobody ever answers. The end. Well, that's the end of the story tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. So sleep well, snuggle down. Good night.